Hello, welcome back to the greatest channel in the universe. In this episode, I sort of want to relax a bit, I guess, and talk about high school. So what is high school? High school is the type of secondary education that we have in the United States of America. That is what you clicked on this video to know. You were desperately searching for a definition to the word high school on google.com or yahoo.com or bing.com or whatever shitty website you browse to get your information from. Maybe you even ask ChatGPT, and Sam Altman, the angel of Sam Altman himself, descended from the clouds and he handed you my video to know what the definition of high school is. Except that that's not actually what happened. You saw this video pop up in your feed and you somewhat resonated with it and you're just like, let's see what this guy has to say. He has a green screen behind him that he's not using. He seems very credible. It seems that he's sitting down on a chair of some sort and speaking into a microphone. It seems that he has invested some time and energy into putting together a set. I really like his set, thank you. And I'm willing to hear what he has to say, but he isn't saying anything concrete to me. When will this video have a point? When will it say something that I can understand? Well, my friend, look no further, the time is now. High school is not only a secondary institution that we have in the United States of America, it's also a place where you get your soul taken away. And I don't mean some goth chick, goes down on you and your soul gets literally just sucked out of you. Unfortunately, that's not what happens to the majority of us. The majority of us just end up going at around 7 a.m. or 8 a.m., which is, by the way, way too early to even think about anything, into a classroom that is read by a 40 or 50-year-old woman who is currently getting paid $30,000 to $40,000 a year in the vast majority of populated states such as Florida, California, and New York. And she's going to tell you exactly how to live your life. Of course, she has 4 children. The earliest of her children were born when she was around 24 and had just graduated from college. And she did not use her degree in any productive way for around 10 to 20 years. She did not go outside. She did not have to do her shopping. Someone else did it for her and lived on government assistance up until she got her first real job, which was teaching. She has no life experience. She's never, worked in food service. She's never done any kind of technical jobs. In the vast majority of cases, she's never struggled. People simply paid her through it. People gave her money to go through this experience of getting a college degree and then not using it. And now she's using this job to repay her loans, which have been backed up for many, many years. And she's not sensing any productive way to advance in her career. She knows that she's not going to get a promotion or a raise of any sort. So after just some time, except for around election season when she becomes a hardcore campaigner for the Democratic Party, she gets extremely bored and she just launches into a tirade against her students about how miserable her life is and how her husband, her second husband, because she divorced the first one, is giving her a hard time about, actually sleeping with her or having intimacy or having to pay all the bills and not getting anything for it, and how she's getting fat and how she shouldn't buy a 5th cat or something, or how she probably shouldn't have ran her truck into a pool. And this woman who, just to remind you, she's never had a proper job before she can teach, because anybody with a bachelor's degree can apparently get a teaching job since it's just such a low-paying job. You don't need to major in education, especially if you're going for a high school position. You can simply enter at any opportunity ever, and then you have that job as a teacher and you get to spouse your bullshit upon every single other person. It's not like you had to struggle. It's not like you didn't get any support. It's not like you didn't get a college degree. You got all of that and you chose deliberately to inflict your pain upon everyone else as a way for making them responsible for your life decisions. So I just outlined basically the average 40 to 50-year-old female teacher. So you get into your classroom at around 7 a.m. and this female teacher then begins telling you how to live your life. Except she doesn't. She's eating her salad, and then she's just like, Jeremiah, is it Jeremiah here? Jeremiah's never here. Jeremiah, you're literally supposed to be at your table. No, stop talking to her, focus on your work. And the rest of the class, so the remaining 21 or 22, because of the No Child Left Behind Act, remaining students, are now listening to the teacher launch tirade against Jeremiah. This happens especially in lower level classes. So in middle school in 8th grade, I was taking geometry, high school level geometry, which means that I was approximately 2 years ahead in math because I got labeled as a gifted student. Surprise, surprise, if it wasn't obvious enough already. I had a very bad experience being a gifted student. I think every single person that's ever been labeled a gifted student has had a bad experience. You're given an IQ test and they basically see how well you do, except this is not the case for me. the first, year or two of middle school, I was homeschooled. So it's not like I was given any sort of test. They just saw that I advanced past several grades worth of coursework from the state that they sent in a matter of weeks because I had literally nothing else to do. And they said, wow, this kid must be really special. So they put me in the autistic level equivalent of special ed, which was just this class full of kids who got labeled neurodivergent by a psychiatrist. And I got put into there just because they thought that, something was going on because I was very smart. And the real situation was that I was just insanely bored. I wasn't neurodivergent in any sort of way. I had never gone to a psychiatrist. I had never been diagnosed with anything. The vast majority of these kids took IQ tests and they were either labeled gifted because that psychiatrist recommended them to be, or they scored exceedingly well on the IQ test or other tests measuring how well they could tie their approximate intelligence into schoolwork. And of course, the vast majority of these cases, they were only able to tie their intelligence into schoolwork and learn these materials very quick because they were neurodivergent. The vast majority of them went to college and became very unhappy during this time period because they found it difficult to communicate with peers. Because of course, when you get to college, you find out that it's not really about studying, it's about social connections. And those people who focused on academics all throughout high school really rarely do well in colleges. So I got put into this gifted program, and immediately upon coming into one of these classrooms, upon the time of getting into real school and middle school geometry, I found out that the vast majority of teachers weren't teaching how they were supposed to. It started out around the end of 7th grade when I got put into traditional education once more, and I was excelling in Spanish. I was getting A grades in Spanish on the online course that I was taking prior to coming into actual middle school. And I came into the class, and the teacher immediately asks that everything be, organized in a specific way. Everything was meant to be written in a specific way in our papers. Hi, Jacob. 5 minutes later, my camera decided that this would be the best time to die. Anyways, I was saying everything had to be done in a very specific way in this specific Spanish classroom. It was led by an older lady. Her name was like Mrs. Rodriguez or something. She was like from Cuba or Dominican Republic or Colombia or Venezuela or one of these countries that claims that its identity is completely different from Mexico, even though it's pretty much exactly the same place everywhere. Everyone's impoverished, everyone wants to get into the United States. It's the typical story. Anyways, aside from the implied classism that sentence entails, she was an okay teacher, but she was extremely strict. She demanded that everyone have everything written in their notebooks already, and these kids obviously had like a 6 or 7 month head start ahead of me. Just because I was learning material separately online and I was having a pretty good time in Spanish doesn't mean that this translated neatly into notebook skills. And I know very well that there are a ton of people who took Spanish for around 4 years in high school and some extra years in middle school like I was trying to do back then, and they have no fundamental knowledge of Spanish. ¿Por qué yo no puedo hablar español? Yo no puedo hablar español porque mi instructor del español no puede ayudar no puede ayudarme. La instructor de español no puede ayudarme porque ella see, it's not coming out evenly. And it doesn't help that it's a language that I haven't touched in a few years. Living in Miami, I think, has only actually decreased my knowledge of Spanish. Because every single time that I come up with I find a Spanish-speaking person in Miami whenever I go there, it seems that they always speak very fast, and that discourages me from trying to learn Spanish any further because I will never reach that level. I am a Polak after all. Polacks are not known for their exceptional knowledge of Spanish. I already had to learn English. English is not my first language. I should not be expected to know a third language, but that's besides the point. This was at a time where I was attempting to. So she comes up to me and she says, why is your notebook not filled out? And I say, ma'am, that is because I am a transfer student. I had just began this class. And she's like, oh, really? But you've been around for a few months. And I'm like, no, not really. I've only been around for a few days. So she's like, okay. So she pulls my info up from the thing and she said, wow, you're going to do exceptionally well in this class. It seems that you've been acing Spanish in your online course according to your transcripts. And I say, yes, ma'am. And she says, well, you need to have all of this stuff in your notebook by next week. And I'm just like, where do I find this stuff? And she says, you find it on your online page. So I say, okay. I come back home. I spent about 3 hours writing everything from that online page down. Turns out that was not enough, because there are some assignments that we do every single day in class that I was supposed to have written down as well. And I say, ma'am, I couldn't have written these assignments down. She says, why couldn't you have taken it from a friend? I'm like, ma'am, I don't know anyone out here. And she says, this isn't working. And I get kicked out of the Spanish class. Next year in 8th grade, I get put into Spanish class again. I get put into Spanish 2. Then I have to go back to the guidance counselor and tell them that I wasn't supposed to be in Spanish 2 because I never took Spanish 1. And they say, well, can't you just try to get Spanish 2? We can't give you the credit for Spanish 2, but you can at least stay in the class now that they put you in there. And I say, no, I won't do that. And then they get very mad because a student is requesting something that they don't entirely agree with. So I have to go back around 4 or 5 times in order to be switched out of Spanish 2 and put into a debate class, which is something that I then ended up doing for around 6 to 7 years and got me to Oxford. But apparently it would have been, a lot simpler for these people to not put me on a trajectory that would have sent me then to a competition in Oxford. And it would have been way simpler for them to simply put me in Spanish 2, which I wouldn't have gotten the credit for anyways. So that tells you a lot about the public education system, but I want to jump back to geometry, which is also a class that I was put in thanks to the gifted program. They had me on the most difficult, most egregious track. And because I was taking advanced level English in middle school in 8th grade, I was taking advanced level science, I was taking advanced level other stuff. I don't even remember what we were doing so many years ago. But every single class I had was with these quote unquote gifted kids that all came from very rich families and they were very autistic. None of them liked me, by the way. All of them had some sort of vendetta against me. I'm not sure why. Maybe because I kind of joined the crowd late, or because of the things that would become apparent later as I grew older and it became very clear that people didn't like me. But they had some sort of vendetta against me, and it was very clear that they did. So jump forward a little bit of time. These kids slowly start, phasing me out of their circle. I no longer am able to get homework help or assignments from them, which is entirely fine. But it seems that the teachers are sort of catching on to the idea that I'm not good of a gifted kid as they thought that I was. I had this one particular geometry teacher, and he goes into these very long political rants about George Orwell in 1984, which I was very much into at the time. He talked a lot about Polish people and the Polish resistance to communism or whatever, and I was like, hell yeah. I didn't care about communism. I didn't even know much about political ideology. I was just getting into that stuff. But I very much liked the fact that he talked about political subjects in class. What didn't help, though, is that we only had around 45 minutes per period, which means that he only had around 25 minutes to talk about geometry. Every single one of these classes was a homework review, and I never did the homework. So I didn't learn anything in the class. We had a particular focus on formulas, remembering specific formulas to learn the angle of the triangle and to calculate the angles of wheels and circles. And I swear I really tried in that class, but something didn't work out, and he pulls me aside one day and he says, Jacob, if you don't pass this test, I'm afraid I'm going to have to kick you out of geometry. And he's been scaring us with that the whole year, so I said, okay, I'm going to do really well to pass this test. Well, I get a 67%, and I say, I'm sorry, Mr. Geometry, can I get, a few percent so that I can pass this grade? And he says, I'm afraid you can't. I'm pulling you out of geometry. You're getting sent to pre-calculus. Sorry, you're getting sent to pre-algebra. Now, why didn't it make sense for me to be sent to pre-algebra? Because I had already done algebra. So it made no sense for me to be put in pre-algebra with the kids that were getting ready to do algebra in high school. Why was I put in pre-algebra? Because I had already done algebra. And I had already done 7th grade math, and I had done 6th grade math. And the only classes that the middle school taught were 6th grade math, 6th grade math, 7th grade math, algebra, pre-algebra, which came before algebra, so 6th grade, 7th grade math, pre-algebra, algebra, and then geometry. And pre-algebra is the only class that I hadn't done, so it's the only other class they could put me in, and they had no other geometry teacher. Simple enough. Once the teacher kicked me out, I went to pre-algebra. What's the problem? Everybody in this school was labeled a gifted kid. The school wanted to receive federal funding from the government and from the state, which means that they labeled as many of their students as they could gifted students, which means that we had the supreme gifted students, which were 2 years ahead in their classes, like me, that were the actual gifted kids that would have gotten gifted students in other schools, and we had the vast majority of the school, which was labeled gifted kids, just so they could be sent 1 year ahead, so those classes like algebra, which were supposed to be taken by 9th graders, could be made very easy and digestible to 8th graders, so that way they could pass, and therefore the state would give more money to the school, and the federal government would give the school more funding. That was the whole, basically, money laundering scheme that my middle school had invented. And it worked very well because the vast majority of the school became labeled gifted, even though they were not gifted. So what did this mean? This meant that pre-algebra, which is the school that math course that most 8th grade students would have ended up taking probably, where this is a normal school to prepare for 9th grade algebra, which is the first high school course, it meant that pre-algebra was filled with special ed kids, like actual lobotomized retards. Can I use that word? They were retards, okay? The kid next to me, to the left of me, was literally eating a fucking crayon. The day that I got there, okay? He was like swallowing that. Maybe it was a colored pencil or something. He was like sucking on that and he was swallowing that shit, dude. I'm not even kidding. Like, that's the level of intelligence that I was surrounded by. The girl to the left of that kid, in high school, there was a huge affair at the high school that she went to, which was right next to my high school. And I learned this from a friend. Apparently a video got leaked of her, like, brushing her, like, hair down there with her toothbrush and hairbrush and other kinds of brushes she found around her house. Apparently that's like a thing that she was into. And it was in high school, so, you know, she sent videos of it and the videos got leaked. And it became like a huge affair and the police had to come down because some kid had like a video of it and that's technically like illegal. It was something like that. And they told me the name of the girl. I'm like, holy shit, that girl was in my middle school 8th grade class. That was the average level of intelligence of the people in that class. That was who I was put in there with. One day, I said the word, surprisingly. I said that word, surprisingly. Would you say that's a high-level word? I wouldn't think so. I would say, surprisingly, this was new to me, or something like that. Surprisingly, I could not do this. And the kid went next to me and said, bro, stop using hard words, bro. I don't understand you, bro. Just pure levels of just autism and retardation around me. Surrounded by it. Okay? Nothing. Nothing. No help, no assistance, nothing whatsoever. Okay? And one day a kid didn't come with his homework. The teacher made it optional for me to give homework because her name was Mrs. Thomas. She was actually quite understanding of the fact that, you know, I'd already done all of this and I'm used to it. And she said, well, any of you can ask Jacob for help if you need any help. No one ever did. They didn't fucking care about their work. Of course they didn't. So one kid came up and he's just like, well, why do you care if I didn't do my homework? Jacob didn't do his homework. And the teacher says, well, Jacob already did algebra honors, so you can sit down. And he says, well, Jacob has glasses and he's a fucking nerd. There's this old phrase that says, imagine how stupid the average person is and realize that 50% of them are stupider than that. I worked so many like minimum wage jobs. None of my coworkers ever, not once in the many minimum wage jobs I worked were my coworkers ever as dismissive or stupid or ununderstandable as the people that I took that class with were. I am so lucky and blessed that every single job that I have ever worked had competent people in it. I hear horror stories every single day of people getting like sexually harassed at work or something. I have never had that experience. And that makes me think, where are these people now? Where are they now? Because they sure as hell aren't working even minimum wage jobs. And if they can't get a minimum wage job because they're too dismissive or arrogant or stupid too, and if they haven't advanced mentally, which I know they haven't, then where are they working? They sure as hell aren't working a normal office job. And by a crowd of these people, I was made to feel that I was somehow inadequate. And this gave me a sort of complex, like, I've been told my entire life, you're this special little snowflake, you're so smart, you're so intelligent, you're so gifted. When it comes down to it, I'm sure that we all know that this stuff doesn't really matter in the real world. In the real world, no one cares how much Kafka or Dostoevsky you've read. No one cares how, interested you are in music and music theory and the various components that make it and different kinds of recorders and production machines. No one cares about the writing that you've done or how interested you are in writing novels or making some of the great works that you read by authors like Vladimir Nabokov and the essays that you've read by people like Nick Land and Mark Fisher, and what you think about the continental philosophy and the resurgence of neo-traditionalist philosophy or contemporary, philosophy blending in with this sort of neo-reactionary movement and its consequences on politics. People don't give a shit about that, and it's perhaps really good that people don't give a shit about that because we have bills to pay. We have kids to raise. We have society that puts the ordinary worker down and puts the intellectual up, puts the tech nerd who is just highly autistic and can't think for himself up to control society as a whole. We have real issues that we have to worry about. We have people's homes getting flooded. We have this extraordinary sort of crisis that is going on where the upper classes are earning so much more than the lower classes. We have so many real issues that struggle to be solved. Okay? And we can't just think of all these absurd things. So these people, they shouldn't be honored for knowing these very specific things unless they put them to practice and somehow make a living based off of them. That makes sense to me, okay? We can't have full automated communes where everybody's a poet. We have to have somebody make the food. We have to have somebody run the production lines. We have to have somebody renovate the roof. We can't look down upon people who work blue-collar jobs. These are the people that build society. We cannot advantage women that went to college and became single mothers at 24 years old and who are then supported by their family members and their boyfriends and other people. We have to advantage the people who went through struggle in their life, who went through drug addiction, who didn't get the chance to get a college degree, and they worked through it. We have to make sure that those people are the ones that receive government benefits, okay? And people who know of very specific autistic things through the internet, like me, shouldn't be lifted up to a higher degree. But nevertheless, people like me who get super into this stuff have this acknowledgement early on that it doesn't care or it doesn't matter, or no one really puts enough care into whether or not you know these things. Because in the real world, people are judged by the values of their connections. Your proximity to someone who is famous or powerful matters way more than the skills that you can use to give back good to this world. That is why I can be the best friend to people for many, many years. And they will see me as higher value in their eyes once I tell them that in 2016, 2017, I was Mr. Beast's first editor. That is why I can put so much good out into the world, and I can make a backlog catalog of hundreds of videos that I worked on as a video editor, hundreds of videos that I made myself, high quality content I put effort into, and all of that content will get 1 or 2 views, but when I make a TikTok talking about how I was Mr. Beast editor, hundreds, thousands of people comment on that TikTok and they tag him and nothing happens, and because he doesn't respond, everybody just moves on. And then years later when I talk about it, everybody's just like, you were Mr. Beast's first editor, and I have to keep repeating and repeating and repeating it. The value of your connections matters more than the type of person that you were, which juxtaposes me into high school. When I got kicked out of geometry, I realized that my smarts weren't going to bring me anywhere. I was put then into Algebra 2. Was I put into Algebra 2? Yes, I was. I took Algebra 2 in 9th grade. No, I wasn't. I took Geometry in 9th grade, which I didn't have to finish because of the COVID pandemic. Fun fact, I was also one of the first people to find out about the COVID pandemic. Because for some reason, life has a way of making me the main character anywhere. I was reading an article that was translated from Chinese into English that someone posted onto Reddit in like November of 2019 about this virus called nCoV nCoV 2019 that was rapidly spreading. That was later renamed to COVID-19. And it read about the first case getting out of China in Wuhan and getting into Washington State. And I was in the US, and a day later, this app called the Johns Hopkins COVID Tracker started tracking the amount of cases per country. And it started tracking that the first case had actually gotten to France, the first nCoV case in Europe, and that it could rapidly spread, and we could have even dozens of infections in other countries. And I showed my friend on the bus, I'm like, hey, COVID just got into Europe, and he's like, who cares? Anyways, got put into geometry, didn't have to finish it because a couple of months later they dismissed us from school. Started doing Algebra 2 online, got that pretty much perfectly, got into pre-calc. Teacher got mad at me in pre-calc because I kept reading books. Again, school's not about learning, it's about your status, and I learned that very powerfully because jumping back into that thing of people viewing me as a sort of separate creature, separate deity, people have this thing where they project sort of their insecurities onto you, and with a lot of friendships that I made throughout high school, I really didn't get the best results. So it turns out that the video that was supposed to be about high school, I spent more of it talking about middle school and the general public education system, but what I said still stands. I think that there is too much of an emphasis put upon young high school students to be proficient in studying, when even after multiple years of Spanish and multiple years of keeping your notebooks a very specific way, because the Cuban immigrant lady told you to, it's not like you're going to succeed in it. It's not like you're going to be seen as this massive, great figure. When you're in high school, you think that high school is everything that there is. And there's this quote that I had from the teacher that helped me set up my philosophy club in high school. And he said, paraphrasing because I'm not revealing the name of my high school in this stupid video, your achievements at Shitsville High School are contained into and only matter within the premises of Shitsville High School. It will not matter anywhere else. And at that time, I was suspicious of him. I didn't understand what he was saying. Next year, he walked away. He was no longer a teacher at that school. But the older I get, the more I think about it. One day, I was passing him by in the hallways, and I said, hey, Mr. Whatever, my favorite teacher. And he says, if I'm your favorite teacher, then you haven't met enough people. Genuinely one of the wisest guys that I've met. One of my friends was super getting into the whole Andrew Tate scene, and he approached him. He said, hey, maybe we should rename the philosophy club to the self-improvement club. And he goes up to him and he's just like, what kind of experience do you have as an 18-year-old that will make you think that you can lead a self-improvement club? And my friend goes up to me later and he's just like, Mr. So-and-so is such a dick. And I'm just like, dude, he's like light years ahead of you in intelligence right now. He's just like 10 years older than us. He's light years ahead of you. One of the wisest guys that I knew. And that quote about what you do within Shitsville High School, applying only within the premises of Shitsville High School in Shitsville, Florida, it really got to me. Because I always thought that high school was life. I thought that everything that happened within high school was the relationships, the breakups, the friendships that you had, the little, arguments that you had, the clubs that you participated in. It was going to matter so much for college. It was, preparing you for that, and everything that you did mattered so much in your APs and your SATs, and you had to sort of focus on that. And now I think about high school. Many years have passed, and it's been so occluded by these thoughts of like further education and the stuff that I did since then and the jobs, and I don't feel anything for it except this distinct sense of melancholy. Like there was a part of my innocence that was lost because I thought that people could be good and that they could be competent and that they could look past the things that were on the outside. The fact that you wore glasses, the fact that you were kind of obese or you didn't have the best friend group. None of these things were looked past. When you're at that age, and perhaps some of you are 14 to 18 years old, the only things that matter are, do you go to the gym frequently? Do you have a toned, athletic physique? Do you hang around the popular kids? Nothing else matters. If you go to a somewhat nerdy school, as I did, maybe people are going to ask about your SATs, or they're going to nerd out about the class standing. You don't want to be around those people anyways. You want to look physically your best, so that you can get through the stage of your life where people are only judging you based on how you appear and how you dress. And then hopefully, once you get into college or once you get into a real job, You're going to encounter normal people that have been through suffering, that have been through trauma, and more than usual, more than not, more often than it's not the case, it is the case, that the people that you will meet that will be the greatest people in your life were the people who got fucked over by reality the most. The people who got just berserked, just absolutely fucking struggled to live inside a home where they're not constantly being beaten. The type of people that go and sign up to the military and they go to boot camp as an enlisted private and they're just like, I get 3 meals a day, I only get shouted at, I don't get punched, I get a bed, this is the best thing ever. Those kinds of people are the best friends that you can ever make. They're not the spoiled kids who drove a really cool car into the school parking lot in junior year when they got their car. They're not the people who are giving every single advantage in life and paid for college. They're not the people who have never had to work a job in their life. They're not the people who got supported by friends and family and government benefits. They're the people who had to struggle to even fucking live, okay? They're the people who had to get a job real early on. They're the people who had to go through high school while being pregnant or having a kid. They're the people who had to raise a family at a really young age, or they got kicked out of their parents' house at a really young age. They're the people who lived in an abusive household. They're the people who didn't get enough food when they were a kid. They're the people who had to starve. They're the people who didn't have an opportunity to go to the gym very early on, didn't have an opportunity to become fitter or grind because they were constantly on the lookout on how to survive. Those are the greatest people you ever meet in your life, not the dipshits in high school, not the people who look at you and judge you by how you look. Because the people who struggled, they will never look at you and judge you based on how you look. They will always try to ask you questions about who you are. They will see you for what you truly are, for how your soul is. They will never judge you for the stupid, non-corporate, non-HR shit that you say, the inappropriate joke that you make. They will always keep it 100% real with you and look at who you truly are on the inside and then apply that logic outwards. Those are the best friends that you'll ever make in your life. And you will always need to hold these people close, not the dipshits that you meet in high school. High school is not real life. Real life is real life. Struggling is real life. Trauma is real life. Getting through the day is real life. And you cannot talk until you've done enough of real life. If you have never struggled in life, you need to. You need to put yourself through something difficult. Because you will never be able to appreciate a poem or the sunset or a sip of water if you've never been through something difficult. You need to put yourself through it even if you're not ready for it. Because if you're not ready for it now, then you never will be. You learn by doing, not by reading. High school doesn't matter. The connections that you will make in it doesn't matter. You will never speak to the vast majority of people you met in high school again. Maybe you'll find 1 or 2 loyal friends that will stick by you for life like I did. And that will be the greatest privilege ever. Your high school girlfriend won't ever call you again. Your college boyfriend will sleep with numerous other girls when he gets into it. If you're a woman, that is. If you're a gay guy, maybe too. Okay? But no one is going to remember you from your high school. No one will ever look at that yearbook again. That class ring will get lost in the trash or in the mail maybe even. Many years after. That high school shirt, you won't know where to find it. I don't know where to find mine. You can only hold on to the memories and hope they don't make you melancholic or sad enough to think that it was all not worth it. You can only hope that the trauma pushes you forward instead of back. And at those moments where you got kicked out of geometry or you got kicked out of your friend group in high school will only remind you how powerful and strong you are, rather than what a fucking loser you are. It doesn't matter what you did in high school. It matters what you do in real life. It matters whether you take lessons from older people that have been through stuff or whether you will repeat their mistakes and learn through actions again. Your action to thought ratio is perhaps the most important thing to remember. And you need to wake up and do something every day for your future self. Or you'll end up a hypocrite that has talked to a camera for multiple years and not applied the same lessons to his life like me. So I guess we need to start on this journey together. And those are words to live by. Overall, the lesson or the moral of this video should be, not to worry too much about the stuff that happens to you early in life, as later in life it won't even matter. The people that you've grown close to will probably backstab you or leave you alone at some point. You need to develop a sense of self and just try every single day to be your best self. And when you fall off, you get right back up. You don't change your identity. You don't think, oh, I'm a loser now. You come right back up. There are so many times where I slipped, where I stopped making videos on the channel for months, where I stopped being my authentic self. It's been years since I'd sat down in front of a real set because I was too lazy to. I just kept recording videos on my phone or my laptop, which I will still do. But whenever I am able to up the quality of my content, I want to. Because I know that I've fallen off and I just want to get back up. And that's the spirit. That's what gets me through life, and hopefully that's what will get you for years. Remember, you're not in prison. You're not thrice divorced like your teachers in high school. You don't need to take an example from them. You can just try to be your best self. And it will truly help you in life. That's all. Thank you for watching the Jakub Chronicles or Jakub's Journal or whatever the hell this is channel now. And just take care of yourself. That's the moral for today. Don't let who people thought you were impact who you want to be. Okay? Okay.